All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for making the time to join our session today. We're going to be talking about a tough question, I guess I should say. Are you wasting your lifecycle data? My name is Leah Lloyd. I am the VP of our Lifecycle Marketing team here at Tinuti.
And I'm Kelly Collins, an Associate Director within our Lifecycle team as well.
All right. So let's just take a step back here and talk about lifecycle marketing. I know we talk about this with many different names, CRM teams, email teams. What does lifecycle marketing actually mean to Tinuti? We really consider ourselves to be the intersection of audience, one-to-one messaging strategy, that continuous testing and optimization just to increase the retention and overall lifetime value of your customers. Messaging for email, mobile, inclusive of push and SMS, and also some on-site messaging, web push, overlays, and on-site banners, which I'm sure some of you are very familiar with these days. Really what we like to do is establish a relationship of trust and consent with our prospects and customers as we're speaking with them, really creating that value exchange. There's a stat floating around outside. I'm sure maybe some of you have seen on the screen, 60% of people have said like they would be more than willing to give up an email address in that value exchange for $20 exchange for a coupon. So really creating that value exchange between our audience, our prospects, really sets the foundation for what we're going to be talking about today. What's important to us is that deep relationship that we need to focus on forming with your brand, your audience, and the types of data that we can truly utilize downstream to help us more intelligently talk outside of just the lifecycle channel and share that with our paid media channels as well. So let's start talking about your own lifecycle data. We put together a little metaphor just to really help the conversation here. So put on your imaginary chef's hats. You are in the kitchen of your Nonna, and you guys are preparing her favorite recipe, pasta pomodoro. And she reminds you at the very end to not forget a very particular ingredient.
Now, we're going to take the pasta. This is an important thing. We're going to strain it. Now watch what I'm going to do. Real fast. One shake, and then back in. Why did I do that? Because I want to save some pasta water. Saving the pasta water allows you to have a little bit of starch to your broth, if you will, which allows the flavor to stick to your pasta.
So how often are you guys forgetting your pasta water when you're making that recipe because you're so hungry and ready to eat it? Let's look at your marketing as the marketing mix as your pasta and your life cycle data really being treated as that actual pasta water, sticking all of that information together, and you might be wasting some of it. I know a lot of us are collecting first-party data today. There's some examples on the slide that we have listed here, many of which you're familiar with. So zero-party data, really meaning that the user is directly giving us that information and proactively sharing it with us. So think of quizzes that you may be answering some questions on your favorite scent profiles, or filling out a profile page to let somebody know when your birthday is because you want to be able to get a free gift later on. First-party data really being the information that we all collect, like from users, based on interactions that take place on site. So products viewed, last app session, blog articles that they may have read. Because these two types of data are really based on individuals' user actions, it's much more reliable than second and third-party data, which we often see paid media channels utilize. So looking at this list again, I'm sure, show of hands, you guys collecting a lot of this data today? All right. I know there's probably quite a few paid media folks in here as well. But once we have this information, you own it. So you can really utilize it to create that pasta water and really make our campaign stick together in a different way. Just make sure you're not being creepy about it. So how do you know if you're actually wasting your pasta water? Kelly and I are here to encourage you all to start asking yourselves the following 3 questions. Do you have a real-time data connection from your ESP to Google Ads and Meta? Are you layering your lifecycle audiences into your paid media strategy today? And are your paid media campaigns truly personalized to where somebody may be in the customer journey? We've got some great stories to share with you and really get your teams thinking how we can work more closely from an acquisition and retention standpoint to make the best use of your pasta water. But before we get to that, let's take a little bit of time to talk about, yet again, why that life cycle data is so important.
So first off, why first-party data, right? You guys have heard of this. This is not new, but few key areas and why this is important. Number one being data deprecation. So you have new privacy laws. People in general are changing their behavior online and the information that they're sharing with us. And also the lovely loss of your third-party data signals, your cookies, right? So all of this leads to your inability to be super, super efficient with your campaigns, which leads us over to budget. If you're not being efficient, if you're not getting all of those key learnings in, you don't have that same level of insight into your customers. So you're likely paying to acquire them time and time and time again, which then plays to relationships. You know, in the keynote this morning, there was a comment around going on a date and like asking all of these questions. So imagine going on that date asking, what's your favorite type of pasta? Leah tells me the pasta pomodoro, but I keep pushing the pesto. And she's like, I don't like it. I don't like it. So if you continue to like listen to your customer and build that relationship, that's really, you know, leading you into driving that overall LTV for the customer and keeping them around long term. So all of these things obviously very clearly intertwined with one another, and everything that kind of improves all of this is first party data. But it's the life cycle data specifically that is a little bit different than maybe what you're using within the paid side. And you're probably thinking, I use first party data already. Great, fantastic start. But the data that you're using within your paid channels is not as reliable and as robust as what we have available to us within our lifecycle marketing platform. So Leah's going to visualize this in a minute, but when I say lifecycle, again, just to even the playing field, anything that we're building segments in, we're deploying emails, SMS, you name it. That is where we're taking all of this data, creating it, and building it into these segments or these audiences. So this data is so special because it's event-based. We're not reliant on a pixel. So if somebody clears their cookies, it's fine. We have full historical context of that individual user from the moment that they've shared their email address with us. So we actually decided to test this theory, like how much more powerful is the data that we have available within that lifecycle platform. So what we did, we took a VIP audience that was built within the paid channel, and we compared what that was like, that performance was like, to the VIP audience that we built out within the lifecycle platform. The client saw a 75% higher ROAS just from changing their data source and putting in a little bit of workaround, if you will, to really tailor it to everybody that fits within that category, not just the data that you have available within the paid channel platform. Another reason lifecycle data is really cool that I think a lot of people don't realize is within email, we require an opt-in, we require a subscription. If somebody opts out, obviously we can't communicate with them any longer. When we're building these audiences, we're not limited to that group of users. So if anybody has ever shared their email address, likely usually during checkout, they don't opt into our channels, we're still able to compile those users into our audiences and share those with paid channel platforms. So big opportunity to, you know, retarget those people that our channels simply can't do anymore. So it's few differences between our data versus what's available within the paid platform. And so there's some barriers to this. It's not just a plug and play sort of go thing. To start, the first one being silos in general. One from a relationship perspective. So paid channels typically are not doing the same work that lifecycle channels are doing. They work differently. They're a little bit siloed from one another. So we have different KPIs, we have different layers of expertise, different language in general that we're using. So as Leah and I are lifecycle experts, we've had to lean pretty heavily on our paid channel experts at Tinuti to really help us even understand the power of some of this data that we have available to us. So it's really important to collaborate cross-channel, which is not the easiest thing to do, especially if your organization isn't really focused on driving that. Then you have your data silos, which over the past probably 2-ish years has been a little bit easier, but the data that we have is not always easily feeding into paid channel platforms. There's either a direct integration, which has come a long way, it seems like, with some of our partners over the past year and a half, but even using third-party integration. So there might be a little bit of legwork to make sure that you can easily use this data. Another barrier is just underestimating how this improves channel KPIs. We're going to walk through a couple other fun stats for you guys where you can see that true lift, but a lot of this will come back to LTV. And when you're looking at your campaigns, you're not measuring that with every campaign that you do. So there's like a long game play here, which obviously isn't always the easiest thing to do, but the goal is to get some of these quicker wins to showcase that immediate benefit, and then doing this longer play and focusing on LTV. And then finally, how to even leverage or access the data. We have so many data points that are being fed into our platforms. And one of the really cool things, one of the things that I love about what we do is taking all of these data points, combining them together so that you're getting these really useful audiences. And typically on the paid side, it's the awareness of the data, how they can use it. So that is definitely an additional barrier. So the goal for today is to break some of this down so you guys can see how impactful it can be when you add the pasta water.
So let's take a brief moment to visualize how this all works as a continuous process. The left side of our diagram on the screen is a lot of these channels that we're working with within our teams today, and they're really truly fueling what the pipeline actually looks like in order to create that pasta water, where we're collecting data in CDP, or what we see pretty frequently with clients, they may be using their ESP as source of truth for that data as well. So that's really where it lives. If we know that we have identified a user through a unique identifier, we can create that personalized content, as Kelly's been talking about, across our paid media channels by sharing those audiences to create really, truly effective campaigns. As those users also start interacting with those campaigns, as you can see, it really allows us to inform retargeting and content strategy to continue this cycle to make sure that that pasta water almost becomes brothy-like, right? It becomes thicker. We have more knowledge. We have more education in order for us to really, really make that messaging break outside of just batch and blast strategies and really, truly be personalized at the end of the day. What if we just don't know who those users are yet? Again, another great life cycle opportunity for us in general to really truly be identifying what those gaps may look like, what we call leaky bucket opportunities. Because what we can do is use some of those channels in paid media to actually retarget later on, or actually encourage user registration, encourage that first purchase as we're nurturing those folks to actually move through the life cycle. So here's our first question, and if you all feel comfortable sharing a raise of hands, does anybody right now have a real-time data connection from your ESP CDP to Google Ads and Meta to share those audiences? I see a couple of hands. Great. That's great. So you guys are absolutely ahead of the game. So we have a client within the automotive space, and the Lifecycle team has been working with them, and the paid media teams have been working with them in building VIP segmentation for that group. And we started by uploading these audience lists directly into Google manually. Very infrequent, maybe 1 or 2 times a year. So as we started to go through, we know that that audience is continuing to grow. And as that audience grows, we want to make sure that those newly assigned audience members are really being effectively targeted within VIP campaigns. In this particular instance also, client ESP did not have a direct integration. So we did have to come up with a solution. So by automating that audience ingestion process in order to create that connection as close to real time as possible, we were able to see some great results. 32% higher clicks, 20% increase in conversion. And what's also, I think, incredibly important here is this client also increased their spend by 93% because of the efficiency that we were seeing, the higher conversions that we were seeing compared to previous campaigns. So simple tactic. Glad to see that there's some folks in the room who are doing that today, but an opportunity to make sure that we're not leaving dollars on the table.
All right, on to question number 2. Are you layering your life cycle audiences into your paid media strategy? So you have a connection. If you raised your hand before, feel free to answer this question. But if your answer is no, then you're missing out on a few things. One being significant insights. You can learn a lot. We'll talk about that in a second. But these insights that you can use to enhance your program. Number 2 is feeding the algorithms, arming your platforms with more data. The more that they know, the better they do. So when I talk about layering in an audience, so what that means, right? We're building that segment within the ESP, and hopefully we have that integration in place. We're not manually uploading a CSV, but if so be it, we have to. In the email channel, if you guys work within the email space, you probably do this a lot. You have a campaign, it's the same campaign, it goes to, you deploy it to 5 different segments because you want to see how those different audiences perform. This is the same idea. In paid channels, they do the same thing. You can take that audience, layer it on, and understand what other audiences and what other campaigns are maybe worth investing a little bit more into. So we actually had another client, they wanted to increase their spend within discovery. And so we took 15 of our best performing campaigns within the client's ESP, layered them in, monitored them for a while, and found there was 3 top performing segments. It was recently engaged with email, it was repeat customers, and our high value customers. So we found those being the top performers, an increase in their spend by over 2x and at a 9% higher ROAS. So all of the money that they were feeding into it, they were getting an excellent return on just from changing their data source. All right, so our final question today, are your paid media campaigns personalized by where they are in the customer journey? Again, if you want to raise your hand, that's cool. If not, that's fine too. We talked a lot of stats around what the lift that you can see with the audiences and matching them. But if you're not customizing your paid campaigns where the users are within their journey, you're not personalizing the customer experience. It goes back to that whole dating thing, right? If Leah's telling me she does not like pesto and I continue to push that pesto, she's probably going to get pretty annoyed. So there's really a missed opportunity to establish that one-to-one relationship and really focus on growing your lifetime value for this customer. So here's just a quick snapshot. Some of the most impactful segments that we've built within our clients' ESPs, we've shared out to their paid channel platforms that we've seen a lot of success with. So to start, we have our seasonal buyer. Maybe they purchase only during Black Friday or Mother's Day. How can you retarget them in your paid channels to get them to come back and make that purchase again this year? With our lapsed buyer, they're familiar with their brand. It's been a minute since they've come back. What kind of offer, what kind of messaging can you do to coax them back and give you another try? With our cross-sell, upsell, they've bought from you. You know what they've purchased. You know the category. You know when they bought it. So taking that opportunity to explore, well, what else can we do to enhance whatever it is that they've previously purchased? Or what else might they need because of that initial purchase? And showing them those relevant products, changing up the landing pages, and again, the messaging there. Your cart and browse abandoners, so we've moved them down the funnel. They're just this close to actually making that conversion. Remind them, let them know what they've left behind. What other items might they want just based off of what they did leave behind? And finally, our VIP and high LTV. Again, feeding the algorithms, yes, but also what's the overall messaging? Where are you sending them? What's their experience look like compared to somebody who's brand new to your brand? So all of these have been used for different clients, different ways that we've seen different success rates, but it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There's a lot of things that you have to take into account when you're trying to figure out who's the best person to target or what's the best audience to focus on. So a number of factors that we have here that's going to influence your approach. You have your own company goals, your audience size, what's the impact, what kind of budget do you have, what content do you have available, data points, you name it. There are so many things that really are going to play into how you guys kind of take this information and use it for your own company. But you always have to consider the what else. Like, is there a big focus on reactivation, or do you have a huge product launch coming up? There's so many things to take into account. But really it's prioritizing by your audience size and what that potential impact looks like. And then, like Leah mentioned, at the end of the day is identifying those unidentified users. That's a big opportunity to continue fueling your platform with unique identifiers, with the people that are, going to be purchasing from you, interacting with your brand. So continuing to focus and driving not only the acquisition and identification of that user, but then what else are we asking them along their journey? Is there a survey, or is there a better way to learn a little bit more about that end user? So a lot of things to consider when you're looking at your own audience strategy.
So what's next, and how do you make the most of your pasta water? So make sure that you guys are collaborating with your counterparts. What we frequently see with clients that we're working with is this disconnect between our retention and acquisition teams. So organizationally, really finding that opportunity, but connectivity, and driving those two groups together to close the loop to make sure that you're utilizing the data that earned teams have in order to really own teams have to really power what paid media looks like. And then very particular to the lifecycle CRM teams out there, confirm your data source and accuracy. Really align with those teams, again, just to make sure that you have the most accurate available data to tap into. As Kelly mentioned, layer in your audiences first. So get an understanding of how those different audiences actually perform within the channel. Use that data to create your long-term strategy. If you don't know where to start, Kelly had a lot of great examples. Hopefully you guys will take some screenshots of these slides later on to share with your team. Cart abandoners, users engaged with emails, as she's mentioned, have always been a very great place to start. And then always evolve and update. So performance of those individual audiences can truly shift based on products, inventory, what we've been seeing in macroeconomic conditions. So monitoring that performance and being able to very quickly pivot on strategies if needed, because users are continually interacting with your brand, as we saw within that diagram, and really entering different stages of the life cycle. So don't forget to create that automation to refresh those audiences ongoing. Thank you all so much for listening to us chat today, and thankfully the hot mic situation wasn't in anything more compromising than that. Yeah, so we'll see. There's still another few seconds here, but come meet us afterwards in the Speaker Connection Lounge under the beautiful tiger. We'd love to talk with you all. If you have questions on this in particular, anything pertaining to life cycle strategies, we'd love to answer questions. Kelly and I are very passionate about the channel. So as a quick reminder also, in this room, right after this, on the main stage, there will be a round table featuring Sony and Ollie, who will go over, is your omni-channel marketing strategy built for today? So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.